All right, welcome to the AdaptX Podcast, where we have conversations with individuals building accessible businesses, advocating for inclusion, or excelling in adaptive sports. Our intention is never to speak on behalf of those with disabilities, but to provide a platform to share their voice and amplify their ideas for a more accessible world. Today, I'm joined by Zach Friedley, a pioneer in the pursuit of bridging the gap between the adaptive athlete community and the trail running world. His nonprofit, Born to Adapt, or the Mendocino Movement Project, is focused on creating events for disabled people across the globe. Zach, thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
So I originally came across your story, I believe, through an on-running collaboration, and initially followed you on LinkedIn, and then kind of obviously in preparation for this episode, read back for the last several years of your trail running and ultra running career. So looking forward to diving into that. But maybe we can start with adolescence or childhood. Were you always into running, or did other sports kind of occupy your time?
I think running was always in the background. I did other sports that running was a part of. Like, I wrestled growing up, and you did running for conditioning. I played football, same thing. But I would have never said as a kid that I was a runner, but it was just something that you did in sports.
Yeah. So wrestling I've seen performed by amputees, football not quite as much. What was that like equipment wise?
Well, for football, it's kind of funny. They duct taped foam around my leg at the time. It was like this titanium knee with a titanium rod, and they would have some foam and they would just duct tape it so nobody would get hurt. And then in wrestling, I would just take my leg off. So I would wrestle with one leg.
Yeah. Growing up, how was your community in terms of their receptiveness to disability and kind of the inclusive nature?
Well, we didn't really use the word disability back then. This is in the 90s. And I would say there was no room for somebody that was disabled. You had to basically make it or prove that you were worthy to be there. I got cut from my freshman baseball team. So I wasn't allowed to play baseball, and I just wanted to be there and be with my classmates. And I actually enjoyed baseball a lot. More than wrestling, actually. Even though wrestling was my main sport, baseball was really fun. Nobody was trying to beat you up. So I found it interesting that I got cut. I couldn't even practice. I even said, I don't want to play games. Maybe I can just get better. And that was even an option. So, that's kind of crazy if you think about it.
And you think it was almost exclusively because of your disability, or?
Yeah, what I think it was, I don't think anybody was being malicious. I just think back then people didn't have a lot of tools to maybe coach an athlete with a disability. And instead of trying to get creative or be a collaborator, they just kind of ignored it. And they're like, oh, let's not have this kid here. Because, you would have to adapt stuff and figure things out. And they just didn't want to do that. And maybe they just didn't know how. And there was no communication of hey, buddy, we don't know what to do here. They just basically said, no, you can't come.
Yeah. So you've been an amputee for 30 plus years, if you talk about being in the 90s. How
congenital.
has the congenital. Yep, congenital. So how has the technology evolved in terms of the prosthetics that you use?
My first leg was a straight up door hinge on a piece of wood. So now I'm wearing a carbon fiber socket with a BOA system, with a titanium knee that's a tank that can go to the top of 6,000 meter peaks, and a custom running blade. So it's come a long way.
Yeah, I want to dive into that a little bit once we start talking about trail running and kind of how you have to modify your equipment to match the terrain, kind of the challenges in that regard. But maybe kind of last thing, you talked about how you didn't talk about disability when you were younger, or it wasn't really like a conversation.
That's a bad word.
Yeah. How do you feel about it now? Are you more comfortable with it?
Yeah. So I think back, and I've kind of reflected on this. Back when I was growing up, you didn't use the word disability because there were no opportunities for people with disabilities. Disability was a bad thing. So you wanted to distance yourself as far away as possible. At least that's how I was brought up, And then when I was in my 30s, I realized that it was almost kind of like, oh, disability is just, who I am. And I identify as a disabled person, and let's lift up this community. Let's change the way disabled is perceived in the world. create more opportunities, and make disability not something that's necessarily put you in the corner and throw away the key.
Yeah. Were there any role models or like kind of people that represented you that you looked up to?
In the running world, I mean, that's a good question. I have role models. I'm trying to think of disabled role models that I might have looked up to growing up.
They don't have to be disabled, and just
Yeah, I mean, somebody comes to mind. I've never even said this to him. There's a guy named Rudy Garcia Tolson. He's a double above knee amputee, and I remember growing up, he was like, he got a lot of PR. He was in California. He was doing triathlons. He was connected to the Challenge Athletes Foundation. And I'm growing up in the Midwest. I'm in Missouri, not as cool as California. And I remember just watching from afar, and I was really motivated by him. I think he came onto my radar when I was like maybe 20, and I'm 40, so that's 20 years ago. I mean, that's a definite role model. Like, look at this dude doing these things. I want to be like that. I remember going through McDonald's drive-thru one time. He was on a McDonald's cup because he was on the Paralympic team, and I remember being like, "Holy cow, this is amazing!" So I shout out to RGT.
There you go. Yeah, that representation, I think, like with the Paralympics being more televised and promoted as of this like last summer, hopefully more people like yourself when you're younger have these role models and representation in sport and on TV.
Yeah, it's important. You never know who's watching. I mean, I'm in a situation right now with this kid, Yahir from Ecuador. I shouldn't say kid, he's 20. But he saw me running in Ecuador a couple of years ago, and that relationship and that just one moment has turned into him now training with me, and I'm coaching him, and he's going to run in UTMB OCC this summer. So if that visibility wouldn't happen, he wouldn't probably be in Chamonix, France.
Yeah, absolutely. When did you start running?
Well, outside of just running when you're in trouble in sports or cutting weight for wrestling, I would say my running officially kind of launched maybe in 2019. I mean, I did try to make a Paralympic team in sprinting and long jump, but I wouldn't even consider that real training and running. I mean, I did, but knowing what I know now, my running career really didn't get going until like 2019.
Yeah. Do you still have any Paralympic aspirations or focusing more on, I mean, obviously trail running is not part of the Paralympics. So.
Yeah. I mean, if they were to add trail running, which those are discussions going on for 2032 Brisbane, I'll be 48 years old. And if it's in the games then, and I'm able to run, that would be sick. But my focus is mainly on trail running, mentoring people into trail running. Then I got some road marathon aspirations that I'm rolling out.
Do you already have a marathon on the schedule? Or are you allowed to talk about it?
So well, I am allowed. I did run New York City Marathon last year, but I was coming off a big mountain season where I'd done a bunch of mountain races. I just climbed a big mountain down in Ecuador and got sick. So I didn't really have like a build up for the New York City Marathon. It was more of a like, oh, cool, I'm here, let's have some fun. But it really ignited my spirit of like, wow, this is pretty sick. I think I want to come back here and actually train for this and actually race this bad boy. So I'm doing the New York City Marathon this year, and I'm actually going to try to race it and see what happens.
You should try to get into Boston for next April.
Well, that's another goal. I have to run a 4:15 or lower to qualify. I mean, it's not my like main thing, so it's kind of hard to balance, mountain running versus road running. But I think we're going to figure it out this year, a system that meets my body's needs and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, running Boston and New York is like running a mountain, basically. So a lot of up and down on those courses. Definitely,
but not. I mean, honestly, the New York City Marathon, it was hard, but it wasn't like hanging off the side of a mountain hard on with like dangerous falls. So I like that aspect.
Yeah, I can't relate because I haven't done any trail running, but
heights, man.
There you go. Yeah, well, that doesn't really mesh well with mountain running, but yeah. So marathon aspirations, but we'll talk a little bit about trail running. So when you first got into it, I'm just like, we're organizing an inclusive road race series, road racing, easy to make courses accessible. How are mountains and trails physically accessible for not only amputees, but how can they be more accessible for anyone?
Yeah, so I mean, it just kind of depends on where you're at in the world. A lot of times I go into a race, like when I'm setting up my race, if I want to have like a wheelchair loop, I might find a course that is maybe 1 or 2 kilometers, and we'll do a loop, so somebody gets to be in the community. You're not carrying up a wheelchair to the top of Everest, but at least you can have them. I mean, maybe you can. And that's an option that if somebody wants to do, like, by all means, come and do that. But I make sure that a person just off the street can come with their wheelchair and be in the community and do the loops as many times as they want. I think the most important thing is to just invite people and see. I mean, just like, hey, come and figure it out. Like, this is a safe place for you to come and see if it's something that you want to do. And then, I mean, that's kind of what I did. I just showed up and was like, all right, how do I do this? The first few times I failed because I didn't have the right modifications, but at least I started to figure it out piece by piece. And I think what we do at Born to Adapt is inviting people to come figure it out for themselves in a space that's like really welcoming, really inviting, and encouraging.
Are
It's
you
scary?
Yeah. Are you running on a traditional running blade with no heel?
Yeah.
Okay. Was there any consideration of running on like a activity blade or something that has a heel? Is it any better for traction?
Yeah, the only consideration I have right now for a heel is in between running. I think so. I'm an AK, so I'm missing my leg above the knee, and there's a little bit different dynamics than somebody missing their leg below the knee. Some people can do like a mountain course and have 2 separate legs. They swap in and out. Maybe they use one for going up, they use one for descending, and they have a person running with them, especially in an ultra that's carrying that extra leg. Well, for me, being an AK, I don't really have the option to swap out things, especially when I'm really like razor thin margins on these cutoffs. So I basically rock the same thing all the way through, and it's a blade. It's very hard coming down, especially some of these trails in Chamonix, France, and Switzerland. The down is, I mean, it's down. It's like it's kind of insane, really. And I don't look forward to those parts of the course because my knee doesn't really give me any stability at all. It's just a free swinging joint, so there's no stability on that side. So it all comes down to my sound side, my left leg. And then I have trekking poles, of course. So I've developed a system where I'll have my arms out in front with my trekking poles, and I'm kind of poking down. There's a certain grade where it hits. I don't know what that percentage is, but then it's like, oh man, I'm just trying not to go end over end,
Yeah, I would imagine that's intimidating for sure. What was the first race that you did? Trail race?
First trail race. Well, technically, it was Born to Run in 2019. I did a 10-mile on this ranch in Los Olivos, California.
And then kind of maybe can you take me through the evolution of that racing? I mean, you did the UMTB recently.
Let's go through my thing here. So 2019, I did that race down in Los Olivos with Born to Run, Luis Escobar, my good friend. And then I showed up to one of his races again in 2021 and did this 25K in this other ranch up in Northern California, which is pretty tough. Then I signed up for the Lake Sonoma 50 mile here in Sonoma County. Did that in September of 2021. I actually DNF'd that. It was 100 degrees. I was not really well prepared for that looking back. But I think I maybe got to mile 18 and tapped out. And then I did Zion 50K, DNF'd at like mile 28. And then I did UTMB MCC, which is a 42K through the Alps. Didn't make the first cutoff. And then that's when things shifted for me. I started working with a different coach. He goes by the Born to Run coach, Eric Orton. He's well known for the book Born to Run. Him and McDougall, he teamed up with McDougall, and the whole story happened, and then they did Born to Run too. So I worked with him and changed a lot, and I haven't DNF'd ever since. I've done races in Spain, Sky Race. I did UTMB MCC again and finished. Sierra Zinel, which is a legendary race in Switzerland. So yeah, things shifted when I started to work with him. And I think my confidence improved, my ability to climb improved, and we have strategies in races. I go into them with like a playbook, like I break it down. I know where I'm going to be in heart rate zones in certain spots. I know what spots I'm probably going to get smoked for a while and then pick it back up, and just kind of go in with a plan. And that really seems to help, rather than just show up to a race and be like, well, hope it goes okay.
How did those early DNFs, I guess, not deter you from, like, did you ever think that, oh, like trail running might not be for me?
I don't think so. I think more along the lines of like, oh, I need to figure this out. Like, this problem popped up, or this issue popped up, or how do I combat this? So I think that's the whole purpose, or for me anyways, is it's not straightforward. You don't just show up and do the thing. You got to figure out some tweaks, and there's little nuances here and there, and things that you can change that impact big time. And I think I was really drawn to that aspect of, I couldn't go to Reddit and figure out what this was, or I couldn't even Google search how to do this. You just kind of tried it, and then you're like, oh, wow, that worked. And now I get to share that information with a lot of people.
Yeah. Outside of maybe having a more clear strategy for race day, did anything within your training change? And like, how do you cross train? Do you strength train? Like, how do you balance, I guess, trail running, road running, cross training?
Yeah. So we do a lot of like hill climbing stuff. I'll go on like, I'm doing a trail on Saturday for 90 minutes, and like earlier this week, I was on the track doing intervals with 400s. So you mix it up. I'm doing speed work. I'm doing hill climbing. I'm doing trail, like, visualization, being out in really gnarly terrain and just navigating that. So it's just mixing up things. I think for me, what really changed is starting to have like prescribed workouts on a trail, like where I go find a big hill and I'm doing hill repeats, 15, 20 of them going up for 20 seconds and then coming down, and like paying attention to my cadence, where my foot's landing, and which body angles are more efficient than others, and just kind of taking all that information and seeing how to run a certain thing on a course. Because in trail running, you have flats that you can smoke it, you have uphills, you have crazy gnarly scrambly sections, and just transitioning into those different skill sets and knowing how you're going to be in those skill sets.
And did I see that you're working with on some sort of modification to your blade?
Yeah, we're doing some prototyping and figuring out what works, what doesn't work. We've gone through many different testing phases and found some pretty cool stuff. It's like a continuation. Every time I go to Zurich, I'm working on something in the lab there for a few days at a time. I think there's not a lot of options for tread. Most of the people that are running on trails are doing it in their garage. They're figuring out maybe a bike tread, or maybe some tread they bought online, or something from the shoe. So it's a lot of do-it-yourself stuff. And what I'm doing at On is kind of, maybe hopefully in the future, there's something that people can buy as like a snap-on aftermarket thing,
Yeah. Are you running on an Oser blade?
I am running on an Oser blade.
Yeah. I would imagine that the terrain of trail running expedites the lifespan of a blade. Have you had to replace them? We are grateful for the support of our first show sponsor. Resolution Fitness offers leading brand health club equipment and accessories for residential and commercial use. In addition to traditional exercise equipment, they specialize in adaptive fitness products and wheelchair accessible machines. If you're interested in outfitting your fitness facility or home gym to be more accessible, visit www.resolutionfitness.ca or the link in the show notes below.
Yeah, I've had to replace them pretty much every year. Right now, I'm rocking 3 of the same models, Oser Exceed, and I have them at different stack heights. I got one at 20, I got one at 32, and I got one at 40. That way I can like microdose certain shoes here and there. I got one that is set up for, 32-inch stack height, or 32 millimeter stack height for the trail. I got a super shoe one. I got one that's low profile. That way I can swap them in and out and have different stack height shoes.
So on the road marathon, you would be still wearing a shoe on your affected side?
I would be wearing just the standard stock blade tread for now that comes with the Oser blade. And then I'd be wearing probably like the Cloud Boom Strike, which is a new super shoe.
Yeah. Okay. I've seen some people run with just the blade, and some people have the blade in the shoe. I don't know exactly kind of how you decide which is better or worse, but
I'm pretty minimal. I don't like a lot of things, especially on the blade. It's the more things you have on there, the more things that can go wrong. But that's also something that I'm experimenting with. Maybe we're going to do a bigger blade for the road marathon. It's a bigger stride. I mean, there's so many different options. It's like an F1 car. It's like, do we like move the fin this way or that way? Like, are we making it wider? There's so many different things.
Yeah. Well, it's awesome that On's invested into kind of coming up with those solutions with you.
Yeah, they're Swiss. They're known for their engineering feats, and I think it challenges a lot of people there and kind of gives them a break from the norm. And yeah, they're just very collaborative. So I think it's a really good partnership that I've stumbled upon there.
When did you establish the Mendocino Movement Project, and kind of what was the motivation behind it?
Yeah, so I moved to California when I turned 30 and started to experience life in a different way. Started working with a guy named Fred Mittauer who does this deep somatic transformational work on your body. And things started to click, working through traumas and just being comfortable with who I am and as a person. And I just really I was really driven, and I really wanted to, instead of like being driven to make a bunch of money and own a Corvette or whatever the heck my goals were whenever I was 20, let's use that and let's change people's lives. So I was living in Mendocino, California at the time. So that's why I named it the Mendocino Movement Project. Mendocino, the location, kind of changed my life. Movement was a big part of my life. And project, which is something that, hey, let's do a project. So that was 2018. I had just gotten back from India. I was in India for a month in an ashram, learning how to meditate, spending time with this man named Mahatma Fikiranan. And it was right when I left to go to India that I filed the paperwork in the state of California for articles of incorporation. And then we actually got our 501c3 official in, I think, 2022. So 2018 is like the birth, and it's just been, one stage after the next. Just keep on chasing the dream.
Yeah. So between 2018 and 2022, when you didn't have nonprofit status yet, what were you focused on, or what were you working on?
Figuring out how we were going to make it work. It kind of got stunted during COVID. So I had a lot of momentum rolling into 2019. And then that all stopped. And then things started to come back around, 2021. My running picked up a lot, and it just kind of evolved. A lot of it was just me funding it with my own money, trying to hire attorneys to file paperwork. It's not like super easy to get a 501c3, and you have to do a lot of different things. But everything just kept on flowing, I did that race in 2021 with Louis Escobar and was just on his podcast afterwards. And that conversation led to like, hey, how come there's no adaptive athletes at trail races? And he's like, dude, why don't you be the guy to do it? I'll teach you how to do it. So that basically started Born to Adapt. He came up with the name Born to Adapt. Actually, he texted me. It was like, hey, what if we call it Born to Adapt? And I'm like, dude, I love it. So it's just kind of following things, and being in the flow and not stopping when you hit a wall. I mean, maybe you're just supposed to turn left. It's just kind of like a river, So I think learning not to be frustrated and just kind of flowing with how things go is what makes this successful.
Yeah. Well, I think COVID was a wall that made everyone turn left or right. So maybe for better or for worse, I don't know if maybe trail running as something that could be done during those early times of COVID, where people were encouraged to get outside and be out in nature. Like maybe there was some small positive of that.
I think there was for me personally. I mean, I was living in Mendocino, California, which is super remote, so I had COVID lockdown there in the redwood forest next to the ocean with not a lot of people. So I just went out in the woods every day and was watching YouTube videos that's when I discovered UTMB, and like I was going down the rabbit hole of trail running and really starting to learn about the sport and the different personalities in the sport and the brands and how that all worked. And that was like kind of when I started to design the vision board. All I had to do all day, like you can't go anywhere. There's no traveling. So I was just studying, becoming a student of the sport.
When was the first Born to Adapt trail race?
2022. We hosted it down there in Los Olivos. in conjunction with Born to Run, which is where my first trail experience happened. So it was like a full circle deal. So that's where it was born.
And how many people did you have participate, and were they all adaptive athletes, or was it like a blend?
I think we had 6 or 7 show up, and it was a blend. We had some people in wheelchairs, we had some people in blades, we had some people that were visually impaired, we had some people running with guides, with their mom, with their dad. I mean, it was just a mix of all these people, and it keeps evolving from that initial event. We've just hosted one in New Zealand where we had like over 200 people show up, all sorts of disabilities, all walks of life, from 6 years old. We had an 80-year-old there, in the redwoods doing loops. So it's really, for me now, about inviting all these different types of communities together. Yes, it's centered around adaptive athletes and people with disabilities, but we're inviting everybody, because you never know, who's going to cross paths. Like maybe somebody's never met a person in a wheelchair, and they come to this event and they see this going on, and it just kind of breaks down barriers in these communities that maybe now cross paths on a daily basis.
Yeah, that's one way that I kind of view our race series, as like an educational campaign as much as anything. Like I just want to teach communities, or teach other people without disabilities, about inclusion, about disability. I think like shared recreation, so people with differences physically, cognitively, performing the same activities or enjoying the same things, is like huge for breaking down those barriers.
Totally. You're just getting people in conversations. You're like, especially in New Zealand, you sit there and you watch, and it's such a small little place. People are like, "Oh, where are you from?" And they're like, "Oh, I'm over here." And they're like, "Oh, like I never knew you lived there." And you just see the connections happening, and it's really cool.
What do you think is kind of like next steps, or what are you working on to continue the growth of it?
Yeah, we're just working with race directors here in the U.S. We're rolling out races at some of the biggest trail races. There's one in Tahoe called Broken Arrow. It's got like 2,700 athletes coming. We're doing an activation there in June. We have another one at Mammoth Trail Fest, which is another huge one. So we're just basically kind of piggybacking off infrastructure that already exists, and implementing some of the things that we've learned throughout the last few years. And more importantly, we're inviting athletes. We're advocating for, when you go to sign up on a website, when you're selecting male, female, non-binary, whatever is there, you're also seeing a button for, are you disabled? And then maybe a drop down of all the disabilities. That way, that's an actual invite. Somebody, when they're signing up, it's like, oh, this race has thought of me. I belong here. And at the same time, it's very organized for the race director and for everybody involved. But that doesn't really happen right now in trail running. There's not a lot of race platforms that offer that. So we're pushing for that, because that makes it easier. When the tool exists, it makes it easier for the people hosting the races. It's really hard to want to host a all-inclusive race when you don't have the tool to intake these people. So we're doing a lot of work there. We also are really successful in New Zealand. Maybe later this year, we're going to do some running clinics down in Ecuador. It just keeps on happening. Different projects are coming to me all the time.
Yeah. I, for some reason, work with a lot of adaptive fitness coaches in New Zealand. There's an organization. There's an organization called Functional Adaptive Movement that has been great for us. And so next time you're abroad, maybe I'll have to. They're in Auckland. Yeah. Might have to connect you with Michael, just so he's aware of when you come down. But he was going to host one of our races on our behalf in Auckland next year. So So
I think I know this guy, actually. I think he reached out to
Michael Heinard, maybe.
Yeah, I got a point person in New Zealand that handles all of our stuff there, but I'm pretty sure this person reached out to us.
He runs a really large adaptive fitness organization and does great work. Cool. So maybe I'll have to make the connection for you guys. But so your approach now is less so like you starting your own race, and more so you piggybacking off of existing trail races and teaching them about inclusion and accessibility?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. I mean, New Zealand is definitely our own race, so that model works well there. I think for here in the United States, there's already big, massive trail races that are kind of independent, grassroots-ish. And I think just having the infrastructure there is a big lift taken away from us, that we don't need to like worry about. So just plugging into those things makes sense. It's kind of like the New York City Marathon. They are huge, and they have an athletes with disabilities division. They didn't create their own New York City Marathon for disabilities. So yeah, it's a little bit of both. I think it just kind of depends on what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah. Do you think so for Boston, for example, recognizes various para categories and they have prize purses and all that stuff built out. Do you think trail running, are you kind of advocating for that where it's almost recognized as its own division?
I hope I can raise enough money that I don't even need anybody to do anything, and we just do it through us. We're like, hey, this is the Born to Adapt Trail Series. Here's the 6 events that we got on the circuit. Here's the prize money. That's what I want to build.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I like that because that's one thing that, again, a goal with one of our race series is to have prize purses for these various adaptive categories because you go around to races and maybe you get acknowledged, but it's obviously not treated on the same level as open fields or whatever. So,
I mean, I have a vision that even the Boston Marathon has all same prize purses across the board. Like Helen O'Beary, who's a non-athlete, probably makes 6 figures. Why not the person in a wheelchair as well? I mean, everybody's working their ass off. Why aren't we compensated the same,
Yeah, Push Rim is definitely getting bigger prize purses, which is great. And I run in the duo category, so I'll be like pushing a wheelchair in Boston in a couple weeks. So that's a category, but not with any sort of recognition. I don't think Hand Cycle has any sort of prize purse associated with it yet either. But I think VI does. I think visual impairment does.
I mean, it's headed in the right direction. I just think there needs to be somebody coming in and being like, boom, like
it has to come from some sort of sponsorship, right, or some sort of funding source. What are you most excited to work on over the next year or two?
I think just building out our Born to Adapt in New Zealand. We really enjoy going there. I really want to maybe work on building inclusive run groups where you see run leaders that aren't just non-disabled people. Maybe there's a run leader somewhere in New York that's in a wheelchair, or a run leader that's got a blade, and they're integrating their community with the non-disabled community, and you see more representation in run groups, because I think there's more potential in run groups than there are actual racing, because not everybody wants to go run a marathon or a half marathon, but everybody probably wants to go to the Wednesday run group and connect with community. So I think if you focus there and focus energy there, obviously you're going to probably grow the racing scene, but why not focus on these community activations? So I think we're coming up with a model, a funding model, where maybe we have these activators somewhere around the world, maybe 5 of them in big cities, and we figure out how to make that happen and then roll that out in other smaller locations.
Yeah, I like that. There's I was on a call yesterday with someone in Maryland who's advocating in legislation for like a second activity blade to be approved by insurance. I think he mentioned that only 17 states maybe in the US consider that activity blade as a medical necessity. Do you know if California is one of them? Do you get any sort of coverage?
They're actually that same movement, so everybody can move. Yeah. My friend Nicole Verkewen is like the I don't even know what you call her, champion of that. She's pushing it big time. I think California just started the process where that is coming down the pipe. The goal that they have is 28 states by 2028. So hopefully California is one of those.
And is the movement exclusively related to amputees?
As far as I know, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's a good question.
Yeah, she was one that I had learned about several months back as well, when we were starting to organize our road race series. So definitely someone I would like to connect with in the future. If people are interested in connecting with you or kind of learning more about your work, what's the best place for them to do so?
Probably Instagram, Trailblader, or at Born to Adapt. Right now, we also have a website. It's going through a refresh right now. It'll be more interactive, hopefully in a month or two, but borntoadapt.org.
Yeah, we'll drop the exact links in the show notes so people can find them more easily. But Zach, thanks for talking. I've followed your story for a little while and really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, man. It's fun.
Thank you for listening to the AdaptX Podcast. Our effort to amplify the ideas of our guests and create more inclusive and accessible industries is futile unless these episodes reach a larger audience. If you enjoyed our discussion today, please leave us a rating or a review on whichever platform you use. And if you would like to learn more about AdaptX, the course that we teach to health and fitness professionals and the projects that our organization is working on, you can subscribe to our newsletter through our website, www.adaptx.org. Until next Monday.